Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the planetary transits for the month of April. But before I begin, I would also like to say I will be talking about the sidereal or astronomical placements as used in Vedic astrology. If you're new to this channel, hi! My name is RoseAnna, I'm a Vedic astrologer. On this channel I talk about planetary transits and new and full moon updates, so if you're interested in that, you can subscribe below. Alright, so for the past 2 months we've had a time of lots of forward momentum, new inspiration, a feeling of wanting to get on with projects and wanting to launch new ideas, and I perhaps have even a lot of creative energy as all of the planets have been in their direct motion for the past 2 months But this will end now as Mercury begins to station retrograde on April 2nd in the sign of Aries. And so now we will have a time of more self-reflection, and because we're in the sign of Aries, this has a lot to do with both our vision, what we wish to create, our goals, our inspiration, our unique path, like what am I here to do? What is most important for me? It has a lot to do with that energy of manifesting the self, if you will. So it's a sign of our dharma, our path, our unique path. And so now begins a time to get a little bit more centered again, get a little bit more grounded in what it is that we actually wish to create. And this feels especially true because as Mercury is only in the beginning degrees of Aries, the retrograde cycle will take it backwards even into Pisces, which roots this feeling deeper into our emotional nature, our emotional self, our inner truth. Sometimes it's easy to intellectually think about what goals we wish to manifest, and we can, on a mental plane, everything feels good, like this should be good or this should be great. But then our emotions perhaps are not really aligned with that vision, or it doesn't really feel 100%. And so this can be a time to really, just take a pause and reflect, what do I really dream of, and how do my goals feel on a deeper level, on an emotional level? Are my intuition in alignment with what I mentally think would be great, let's say? So it could also be a time where we get to focus a little bit more on our individual expression, and even how we, as Mercury is the planet of the analytical mind and the intellect, and also the planet that is responsible for self-observation, is that a word? Self-reflection. And so Mercury also deals a lot with the way we think about our abilities, the way we think about ourselves and our unique expression, let's say. And so this can be a time where we're invited to take pause and make sure that we're actually our best ally, because sometimes we can be, or I myself can be, a lot too much too self-critical. And so this can also be a time where we get to observe our own thoughts and the way we think about ourselves and our abilities a little bit, and perhaps become a little bit of a better ally to ourselves and help us forward, rather than getting stuck in negative thought patterns and whatnot. So yeah, it could be a good time for that as well. Then we have another interesting transit on April 3rd, when Venus will conjoin Neptune in an exact conjunction in Pisces. And so both of these planets are planets of love and devotion. And Venus, of course, is the planet of our relationships, our romantic relationships, but even friendships to a point. But then Neptune is like the higher expression, or like the more cosmic expression of Venus. So both Neptune and Venus together can really create this grand romantic ideals, or illusions even. Neptune is really a planet that also brings out the illusions, and they can create these like dreamlike ideals that might actually be very hard for us to live up to, which can also instead create a feeling of disappointment, or where reality just doesn't measure to the dream. And so this could be something to keep in mind with this transit as well. So this is a time where it's important to manage our own expectations and to not get too swept away in our like romantic notions that we may have, or illusions of the mind when it comes to these things. Then, of course, we have the most important transit for this month, which is the new moon and solar eclipse on April 8th. And so this is really a time of, because the solar eclipse will be in Pisces, and so it automatically brings up that, like, the polarity between Pisces and Virgo, between chaos and order, structure and dreamlike illusion, and where we get to focus and create routines, and on the other hand, where we just want to let everything go and just be in a state of bliss. And so there's this natural polarity that comes into light here. And this, of course, depends a lot on which sign or which house this falls in your chart, so you can see which area of life this will pertain to for you. But I will make a separate video as well on the new moon, but it can really be a time where we get to become more in touch with our intuition, our deeper sensitivity, our dreams. What do we actually long for? And if we've had, like, you know, a longing to create something perhaps, or a longing for something in life that we haven't really given much energy to, or given much thought to, or attention to, this can come into light as well during the solar eclipse. And as always, when it comes to the eclipses and the nodes, as they are responsible for encasing the luminaries in shadow, they always pertain to things from the subconscious, things from our shadow self, which we may not have been aware of, that comes into light in a way, and they can create really significant changes in our life, changes in our goals, or changes in our way of thinking, or changing our way of relating to certain things, where we get to see things in a new light, let's say. But there will be a separate video coming out on the solar eclipse, so look out for that. Then there will be an exact conjunction between Mars and Saturn in Aquarius on April 10th. And this really, both of these tamasic planets together, they really has a lot to do with our survival, our safety, our material reality, our physical reality, like how we protect our body, and even like the material structures of how we create our safety even. So like putting food on the table, having a place to rest our head at night, and they have a lot to do with how we see to our own safety and survival a little bit. And so these two together can really also bring into light how are our material structures functioning? Is there areas that need extra attention to create functioning structures and balance? They can also bring into light certain like deeper fears or insecurities even, because Saturn especially can really bring out our deeper fears, and even they are both responsible for like the fight and flight response. Mars is fight and Saturn is flight, like going into the fear. And it's also interesting because they will be in the sign of Aquarius, and so there's this undertone of like rebellious energy in a way when it comes to this as well. And so it can also mean that, you know, sometimes when you've boxed yourself in a little bit with too many structures and there's no ability to move anymore, you sort of get the feeling like you want to just tear everything down and, you know, throw everything up in the air just to see what happens. I get also that little vibe from when I think about this conjunction, but it's a good time to become aware of what structures are functioning and which ones are not in our life, and how we can create more stability, let's say, in the material reality. Then Sun will move into Aries on April 13th, which feels like a new cycle beginning. So the Sun has now completed an entire transit through the zodiac, through Pisces, and then a new beginning in Aries. And at least here where I'm at in the northern hemisphere, there's an energy of spring, of new beginnings, new revival. And so this really feels a lot like the Sun in Aries transit. So here we can get a little bit of a new fire awakening, a new sense of motivation, inspiration, the energy of just wanting to get going with things, get going with our projects, get going with our ideas, making things happen a little bit. So it could be a good time for making new things come to light, I was about to say, but rather taking our projects to the next level. Or if we've had a sense of creative inspiration, now we can transform that into action. So it could be a very, time of action, time of moving forward on our path and making things happen. A little bit of a, let's say, a go-getter energy here. Then Venus will move into an exact conjunction with Rahu on April 17th. On April 17th in the sign of Pisces as well. So there's a lot of themes around illusion and mental obsession and things pertaining to that with Venus this month. So it can also be like a challenge, like with Neptune, that deals a lot with grand ideals and illusions. But with Rahu, Venus can also get where we get like mental obsessions or mental, even illusions in this case also, when it comes to our romantic connections or our how we express love, let's say, or the way we think about love and what we actually want from it. So it can deal a lot with bringing, if we've had certain desires or certain wishes or ideals that we haven't really given much thought to, because as always, when the nodes, they have a tendency to bring things up from the subconscious or from the shadow. And so this pertains a lot to how we relate to others and what actually it is that we want from our relationships. How do we want them to function? What really feels important to me, and what do I desire from a partner? And which things am I not so willing to compromise with, and which things aren't really that important and it doesn't really matter. And so it can be a time of reflecting on these things. Which values really feels important to me when it comes to my relationships? And it could also be a time, because as with Rahu, it's the karmic nodes, you usually call the nodes. And so it could be also a time of karmic relationships and karmic connections and things that pertain a little bit to the purpose that we perceive we are here to attain or to focus on in this life. It could also deal a lot with soul lessons that we have brought into this life and how they connect to our relationships and what we are meant to learn from our relationships. So that could also be a theme of this conjunction. But what's important is to not get caught up in those rosy mental illusions or grand ideals, and to just stay centered, stay realistic, and to not get swept away in a sense. Then Venus will move into Aries on April 24th. And so this also feels like a new time of creative inspiration, of wanting to let out our uniqueness and our individual expression in a way. So Venus in Aries really feels to me like the very creative, very expressionistic, am I inventing words again, kind of transit, where we really just, yeah, we just long to make things beautiful, take new action in our creative projects, and just have a little bit of fun. It feels like a very passionate expression for Venus to be in, and also where it could be a little bit of a hard time or a little bit of a challenge when it comes to compromising, as Venus is the planet that wants equality, and there's supposed to be this balance in our relationship between giving and taking and compromising and all of that. But in the individualistic and headstrong sign of Aries, this feels like there could be a challenge when it comes to compromising in our relationships a little bit while Venus is here. But all in all, I feel like this is a really creative and kind of fun transit as well. So to summarize, I feel like this is a month where we get to connect a little bit, as it is a lot of things happening in Pisces. So we get to connect a little bit to our deeper emotional self, our deeper intuitive wisdom, or our deeper emotional truth, and how we align this with that sense of inspiration and vision and purpose. And so yeah, just making sure we're centered and aligned when it comes to these things. This also feels especially true with the solar eclipse in Pisces, and it feels like a month where we get to connect a little bit more to our inner self, our intuition, our sense of inner knowing, and even our sensitivity and how we manage our sensitivity, and making sure we allow our intuition and our sensitivity to take space and to listen inward. So it could also be a time of connecting to our spirituality and to our inner emotional aspect of life, let's say. It could also be a balancing act between that dreamy, cosmic, sensitive energy, and at the same time feeling or being disciplined and finding the right motivation to keep us on track and to keep us doing the necessary tasks and the necessary actions. So there's this balance between those two energies, I feel, as well this month. So that was it for this update. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please leave a like or a comment, or even share the video with someone you believe would appreciate it. And I wish you all the very best month of April. I will see you in the next update. Take care, guys. Bye.